there are 4 pillars for a successful business in Canada that we have observed. And in this video, we're going to talk about pillars number 1 and 2. Click here the subscribe button and set up the alert. And if you find this video helpful, let us know by clicking the like button. But let's see what's pillar number 1 that we have observed. You have to know the potential, you have to know the market. Quantify the potential is the name we give here. And here's where a lot of people already don't understand this full potential. Because when we're talking about the potential, the market size, how big is the market, we're never talking only about Canada. Because of a very simple reason. Canada is a great place to do business from. So it's not only about business you can do in Canada, but it's also business you can do from Canada in other places, like for example the United States, the European Union, and Canada also has bilateral agreements with many other places. So this can be treated to a degree as being part of your Canadian market or the market that you can access from your Canadian company. Okay? It's very helpful if you look ahead in terms of stages, right? For example, maybe there is a pilot stage where, yes, I'm going to only look at Canada, but also, especially if I'm coming from a different country, I also already have a business in an emerging market, for example. Then, well, since I'm in Canada, I already have a business there. There's also the potential to look at doing business both ways, right? And sometimes the presence in Canada helps drive more business back home for whatever type of reason that you are able to structure, right? But then the second stage typically ends up being the United States, just because it's so close to Canada and it's such a large market. And there are so little barriers for a Canadian company to do business in the United States, right? So that typically will be the second stage. And then the third stage is every other market that can be accessed from Canada, namely the European Union and many other bilateral agreements. So it's really important to look at Canada as being this base to do business in several places. Start in Canada, expand into the United States, and then expand to another layer. Typically, that's what a lot of people do. Of course, there's no magic formula here. It has to be doing 1, 2, 3. No. If there are opportunities to already do business in a different country from the Canadian base, by all means. But I'm just saying it's a helpful way to think about Canada as these concentric circles, right? That you can continually expand from. So in terms of market research, we're talking about quantifying the potential of the market. One thing that people know very well and they do very well is go do online market, right? Market research. So, and sometimes they buy specialized reports as well. There are plenty of free sources today, like Google, all the internet and all that. And there's different industry associations and all sorts of statistic providers that provide even a lot of good information for free. And if you're willing to pay, you get even better, more granular information. So there's no shortage of information in terms of market size that you can do online from your desk sitting anywhere you are. But in reality, if you want to know how things are going to work in Canada, you're going to need to talk to people in the Canadian market. And that's what people call primary market research. The other research I was referring to before is typically called secondary market research. But this primary market research is just a fancy name to say you have to talk to people, right? You have to go and talk to people. And we have other videos here that we describe specifically how you can do that. Remember, it's necessary to do primary market research to get a better taste of reality. Just looking at reports and research you did from your computer, it's not gonna give you a good vision of reality. And then you may feel surprised, say, well, but my research indicated this and this is not what's happening. Well, if you didn't talk to people, you're not gonna know what things are actually in reality. The second thing that is very helpful to get from these one-on-one information interviews that you're going to have with people in Canada is to get information about competition. Because same way, you can get a lot of information about competition online, just going there, Googling, oh, who sells this, who does that. In the end of the day, the digital marketing of some companies may be fantastic, and sometimes they're not a real force in the market as you would expect. Again, it's important to talk to people to understand, especially if you're able to talk to a company that could be your type of client, understand from their standpoint, who are your competitors? Who do they think about when they want to buy something similar to what you sell? So it's important to understand competition from the standpoint of who will buy, right? And that you're only going to have from these one-on-one conversations. And the same thing goes for pricing. Yes, you can get some pricing information by doing some research remotely or on the computer, but in the end of the day, pricing is going to be driven by the perception of value. So if you talk to people and they have a perception that a problem has a certain size, that's going to give you a hint of how much value they place in that, a solution for that problem. And that will give you a good understanding of how well you can price your solution, right? It's not about, oh, let me see what my competitors charge only. That's kind of an incomplete way to do this work, right? So if you talk to people to quantify the potential of your market in Canada, you're going to have to talk to people. And keep in mind that there are other stages ahead. If this all sounds a little bit too convoluted, complicated, don't worry. We are here to hold your hands. For those of you that are really in Canada, starting your journey, or are for some time in your journey and it's not yielding the results that you want, we have here our program, Your Business in Canada, and click in the link here in the description. We can hold your hand throughout the process. But let's look at the second pillar that we have here. The second pillar, remember, the first pillar is quantify the potential of the market, right? The second pillar now is access to market. Because I may be looking at the biggest potential in the world, but if I'm not able to convince people, if people are not interested in talking to me, then I don't have access to that market, right? So it's important to have access to the market. And how do we do that? It's very important first to understand how clients prefer to find you. It's not about me telling them, oh, come here, talk to me, because I already start from a position of disadvantage when I'm trying to convince somebody that's skeptical. So I want first to understand how these potential clients of my business here in Canada, they believe in reputation of a provider of solution like my company, right? So where does reputation come from? Do I need to be publishing scientific literature? Do I need to be participating in trade shows? Do I need to write articles for an industry publication? Do I need to be doing innovation projects? Do I need to have a big office, a shining place in a specific location in the city? There are several different ways where reputation can be established. And it's very important. Again, talking to people is when you're going to learn all this, right? Establishment of reputation in the Canadians' eyes. How does that happen? So you need to know that so you can position yourself along these lines. And that will come hand to hand with your marketing and sales channels in Canada. Some people prefer to buy at a trade show. Some people prefer to buy through a portal. Some people don't talk to sellers at all, right? So you need to understand all that. Which are the channels that people are using to receive information about solution providers, and how do they actually make it happen? How do they implement the sales? How's the procurement process? You need to understand that. So in terms of access to market, yes, you need to understand how clients prefer to be reached by you. Second, you need to pass the paperwork filter. What does that mean? Well, that's the usual, right? There's specifications according to the Canadian standards that you need to meet. Do you need some specific certification? Do you need authorizations? Do you need approvals? Do you need licenses? All these needs to be up to speed and ready before anybody decides to buy from you. A Canadian will never buy, say, yeah, let's test first. Let's just start selling this. And then if we see there's going to be a bigger volume, then we go after all the approvals. Canadians will be very strict and want, no. I want you to go through all the cost first to get every paperwork done, and then I'm going to buy just a little bit from you. So that's a tough reality that you need to know. And also pay attention to what the market demands, not only what the regulatory agency may see, because the regulator may see, yeah, you just need this certificate and this approval. But the market says, no, yeah, sure, that's what the regulatory body says, but we want only to buy from people who also have these and that other standards. So Don't fall in the trap of just going to a government website and see what kind of regulation is required. You need, again, to talk to people, to potential buyers that can tell you what the market expects in terms of filters that you have to pass for your paperwork. The third and most important thing, where everything is wrapped up together, is that you have to align your sales process with your client's buying process, right? And this is where I see a lot of people making costly mistakes. Takes them 2 years to figure out that things are not working, and they spend a lot of money. For example, oh, let's just hire this great salesperson in Canada and they're going to make the sales for us. Well, if you're selling to a certain sector that only buys everything through a portal, a salesperson is not going to be able to book you any meetings. If there's a reason why people don't talk to salespeople, they want to have you supply your information through an RFP, respond to an RFP, right? So it's important to align your sales process with whatever is the buying process of the other side. It's very easy to spend a lot of money in the wrong direction in these initial sales efforts. So these were the first two pillars. These are two videos that you have where we speak a little bit more about these two topics. And we're gonna go now to a different video to see the other two pillars.